Hey everybody, this is Jason with the Landlord Launch, and I want to welcome you to the move out process section of the Landlord Launch program, the Landlord Launch course. We are wrapping up our time together, at least within this particular scenario with the course and everything, with the move out process. So we're going to cover what that looks like for the turnover process as well, kind of as we go through these last couple sections. So a lot of great information here, a lot of great resources. Really looking forward to going over this with everybody and seeing what you guys do with this within your own business. So let's go on and jump right in and see what this section has in store for us all. So today we're going to be covering the move out process. We're going to be looking at, as a part of that, security deposit settlements. We're going to be looking at abandonment notices. We're going to be looking at the turnover process. So after they're out, the management of the maintenance and the things that go into getting that unit back ready on and on market. And then we're going to take a look at, of course, all the resources that we have in place to help with that, and the checklist, the move out checklist. I got property management is a checklist heavy type industry, and but it's good. There's a lot of things that goes into property management, being a landlord, and like with every other process, I like checklists because it turns those processes into repeatable, actionable items, which allows us to repeat those and apply those consistently across all of the tenants that we work with throughout the time that we own rental properties. So this is our kind of standard basic move out process. And once again, we're covering the basics here, but yours may vary. Yours may be more complicated. Maybe it's less complicated, but whatever it is, this is just a great place to start with, so you can kind of figure out what it looks like normally and then where you want to take it and go with. And of course, we have, this starts with the notice to vacate, and then starting that move out checklist so that we can make sure we mark off all the things, or do all the things that we need to do and mark those off. We're going to talk about that vacating resident letter. We saw the welcome letter at the move in. Now we have a vacating resident letter at the move out. We're going to look at, scheduling those utility transfers, the transfer of possession, getting your home back, getting the keys and everything back so that you can get that back on the market and released. We're going to look at completing the move-out inspection, the stuff that goes into that, the security deposit reconciliation, or the settlement, basically. That's the returning their deposit or charging them, whatever the charges that go into that. And then getting that settlement out, and then moving into the turnover process, which once again is getting the home back on the market, getting the repairs done, getting the contractor scheduled, and getting that thing back up to the point it needs to be to get re-rented. If we're lucky, the previous resident leaves it in rent-ready shape, but unfortunately, that doesn't happen near as much as I personally would like it to. So let's start with what initiates that move-out process in the first place, and that is the notice to vacate. Now, this could also be at the point in time where there's a couple other exit points, I guess is what I'm saying, and maybe the notice to vacate isn't exactly the same thing as the eviction, but we know that somebody's going to be leaving when we get a notice to vacate. We know that somebody's going to be leaving if we have to issue an eviction notice, or if we have to issue a notice of abandonment as well. Those are three different exit points that we know that we don't quite have possession yet, but we know it's coming. So we're going to just do a standard move out here, but I'll try to parallel kind of what happens when somebody abandons and the eviction process is happening as we go too. So in our lease, we should have a provision stating that, we need a 30-day notice, 60-day notice, whatever that is, within our lease renewal process. Hopefully you're talking to those folks and you already have a good knowledge or understanding of who's going to stay and who isn't going to stay, far ahead in advance. But regardless, we need to get that notice to vacate on or before the first of the month. And I always tell residents that if they give it to us after the fact, second, third, fourth, fifth, then they're responsible for the following month. Now, if it comes in on a second or a weekend or whatever. I'm usually not difficult about these things, but I'm also lenient with everybody across the board. So the biggest thing for me is being consistent. I mean, if you draw a hard line on the first and nobody's the first until somebody you like, and then you kind of break free from that, that starts to be an issue. But if you're lenient with everybody for the first couple days, then that's fine as well. Just be consistent with whatever you do. Now, a lot of times we'll get it over the phone, or we'll get a email, or we'll get a letter from the resident saying, hey, I'm leaving. If I get over the phone or they're talking to me, I'll tell them, hey, you need to send that in writing. I don't care if it's email, or I can send you a form and you can fill that out or whatever, but it has to be in writing. And then from there, what I'll do is, if they don't use my form, I will pull out my form and I will fill it out, and I will attach their notice to it, and I will make sure that I have all the information I need. And if their form doesn't indicate the reason that they're leaving, if they don't indicate the forwarding address, I'll actually call them and say, hey, what is your forwarding address going to be? I'm just completing paperwork on my side. Oh, by the way, why are you leaving? What's happening? And 10 to 1, if you're doing your renewal process right, you already know anyway, so you can put it on there. But then I'll attach it, but I still use my own form, if for nothing else, just to make sure that I capture all the information that I need to. And yeah, that's what it says on here as well. Let's just take a quick look at, you can pretty much see. All right, let me just pull this over here. Again, you can pretty much see that's a pretty good image on the slide. But again, it's nothing special. What the date, name, address of the property, who they are, given a 30-day notice or 60 if that's what you require. Here's the address. And then listed at the above address on such and such date, 2023, serves as authorization to show the home. So this is giving me a release to permission to go in and pre-lease with reasonable notice. And again, if you remember back to our leasing module or leasing session, one of the things I like to do is kind of do that modified open house, where I will advertise that appointments, preset appointments are on. I'll advertise that I'm going to show the house on a Saturday between 11 and 1 or something like that, 11 and 2 o'clock, so that those tenants can leave. And then I'll set one-on-one appointments. That way I'm not leaving. I don't have a bunch of people walking around our tenant's house unsupervised. So that's the way I kind of like to do those. It seems to be pretty effective. But this gives me permission to go on and set that up. Excuse me. Then again, it has the reason for vacating, forwarding address, and then signatures. And then here it looks like, I think I mirror this in the move out letter as well, in terms of the charges and the verbiage I use. We'll look at that here in a minute, but I mirror here too, that I understand it's my responsibility to leave the home in the same or better condition as when I moved in. And then a move out inspection will be conducted to determine if there are any damages, etc. But I follow up with that person a couple different times and try to hit them in a couple different points, because if we can get that thing back to where it's close to move-in ready, and we can slap a quick clean on there and there's not much work or whatever else, that just means less expense overall, more money, less vacancy loss, less maintenance expense, less cleaning expense, whatever it may be. Now we can start showing it earlier. It's just better all the way around. And it's better for them too, because if they knock that out and I can get that leased quick, or they turn it back in and it's pretty much rent ready, then I'm not near as inclined. If somebody turns a unit back into me, it's just destroyed, and you can just tell, or maybe not even destroyed, but you can just tell they just didn't care on the way out like that. No care at all how they left that place, maybe trash on the floor or whatever else. Well, then I'm gonna follow my process to the T. I'm gonna charge them where I need to charge them. I'm gonna bring cleaners in, even if it's on the line. I'm gonna get the thing done right, and I'm gonna charge them back their deposit. If they have done their best to leave that thing move-in ready, or some wear and tear or whatever else, and it's just a couple little things here and there that maybe I could charge them for, 10 to 1, I'm probably not charging them. I'm just getting the thing ready and getting it going, and I'm giving her a deposit back and being appreciative and just moving on. If a tenant treats me right, I'm going to treat them right. Not that I'm treating them wrong by charging their deposit. It's just I'm not near as much of a stickler. If they make my life easy, I want to make their life easy too. So that's what I try to get across. Sometimes works, not always. All right, so let's take a look here. Notice a vacate. Let me get back here. Okay. Abandonment. So this is kind of another exit point. If you understand or if you know that your home is vacant or you suspect it's vacant, and there's usually in most states there's a process you can go through to go on and retrieve and claim possession of the home. In Kansas, it wasn't that big of a deal. We gave a 48-hour notice of abandonment. Most times utilities were off anyway. We'd go in, we'd change the locks, we would hold their personal property if there was any left. We'd give the notice, and we would try to make some calls and get in touch with them, emergency contacts, references, things along those lines, but usually we never got a call back, and then we moved on. Some states are a little more complicated. Again, you're going to have, once again, we've referenced them a lot throughout this course, so I'm going to attach them again in the resources here, the state laws and everything, and in some of those links it actually goes into what the abandonment procedures are state by state, which is a little bit broad for me to be able to get into, but those resources are great. So no need for me to reinvent that wheel. You have it all right there, as long as I can get you access to that resource. But this is an example of the abandonment notice. Let me find this here. Again, nothing really complicated, at least this basic one. And again, the Kansas one was a pretty basic process. It wasn't that complicated. And so it just, hey, numerous attempts to contact you. We're declaring this abandoned. And then for what reasons? I like to, are the utilities shut off? There's a typo there, sorry. Utilities are shut off. Most of the property's removed. Haven't paid rent, home looks vacant, whatever that may be. And I leave that on there, and then 48 hours goes by. If that thing hasn't been touched, then I know they're pretty much gone. I double check and make sure, try to make some calls in the meantime, and I just change the locks and move on. And it's never been an issue, ever. Now, again, I know that some of the other states, it's more complicated, so check yours out and make sure you understand that, because when you start getting into, like we talked about before, abandonment, and you're reclaiming possession of the real estate, which starts to become a legal process. So if you do that wrong, then, that can backfire on you. So make sure you understand what the laws are there and follow them. And then also how to dispose of the personal property in your particular state as well. What notice requirements do you have to give? Do you have to give? Some places you don't have to give notice. If they're gone and they left it there, it's yours. You can throw it away. You can do whatever you want to. Other places a little more complicated. So just make sure you understand those requirements. Okay, the move out checklist. So here we go. Here's the checklist. So once again, this is a list of steps in your process turned into more like an action list, a list of action items. Download it, edit it, make it yours. You can add or remove items, whatever makes sense in your process. And my guess is as you move along, you're going to be like, I really want to start doing that, or I want to start looking out for that, or that's not necessary, or whatever the case may be. This is going to develop and grow with you. And for each person that uses this, your process is going to vary from one person to the next. There is no one perfect process out there. The perfect process is what works for you. And it just, this can be, things that are on here could be maybe really silly to some people. And maybe one landlord will have no idea we have it on there, but for you, it's important, and that works, and that's exactly what this is for. Is this is your process. Make it your own. Plus, the other thing I like that this does is that although we're kind of out of the fair housing trouble to a certain degree on here, maybe in the abandonment or eviction out type side of things, and that could be something on your move out checklist as well, which isn't really outlined here, is personal property. If you have to give a 14-day notice, newspaper notice for your personal property abandonment notice, maybe that's one of your move out checklist items here, to account for the times when somebody abandons, or when there's eviction, or when there's stuff left behind. Maybe that's a good thing to add here. Let's just take a Again, you can read that pretty good there, but again, it's the same checklist. I mean, you just add or remove what you need to, residence name, address, the actual move out date. And this is just a documentation too that you are processing your move outs the same across the board. You're treating everybody the same. You're not doing one thing for one person and something else for another. Again, not probably as important on the move out side. I don't think I've ever ran into any issues where people are claiming discrimination on the way that we moved them out. But, you know, if nothing else, it keeps you consistent and make sure that if there's things you want to make sure happens in your move out, you have a way to remember those. Okay. Vacating resident packet. So this is kind of like the welcome letter that we sent to the resident. This is the opposite though. This is you're moving out and this is all the information I want you to know about the move out. What's the process going to look like? You know, what are the potential charges you're facing if you don't do the things you're supposed to do? You know, what are the cleaning expectations? I mean, I pretty much put a cleaning checklist in here. And then again, the goal is to encourage that tenant to leave this in move-in condition. And then, you know, it may even state in here, it may even state in here something to that effect that leave this in move-in condition. That's the real goal. So let's just take a look at this. General letter. You've submitted your 30-day notice. Make sure to fill out your notice to vacate. Provide your forwarding address. Security deposit. In order to prevent any misunderstanding, a security deposit can never be used as last month's rent. That's actually a state of Kansas landlord-tenant law. And plus, I don't want that to happen anyway, because I want that we wouldn't accept that. I would proceed with a non-payment eviction for non-payment of rent if they tried to do that, because I need that deposit to cover its purposes, which are damages. It's the intention is not for it to pay for rent. Also outlines the expectations when they'll get their security deposit back. For Kansas, that's 30 days. Other states may be different. I actually think there's a resource in there. I think it's under miscellaneous in the forms vault, and it's a list of the states and how long you have to return the security deposit, because some of them are like 14 days. I think Arizona's 14 days. If I remember, I get them, they kind of bleed together sometimes. I'm pretty sure Arizona's 14 days to return. I know other states are as well, or have different timelines. And here we go. We want to return your security deposit, and we do. I do. I don't want somebody's security deposit. It doesn't. That just means if I have to keep somebody's security deposit, that just means I'm dealing with a whole lot of hassle. That means I have to account for all the charges. I have to fill out the security deposit reconciliation. I have to make sure they get it in that amount of time. I have to contract labor, and then 10-to-1 the deposit isn't going to cover anyway. So if I'm keeping a deposit, it's because there is a hassle, and I'm just not interested. I don't want the deposit. It's not a profit center for me, and I don't. As a landlord, and I don't think most people understand that it's not a profit center for us. It's to cover damages that we actually incur. We would much rather have a home that is ready to market and move into once you leave. Please take all necessary steps to ensure your home is move-in ready, and you will get your full deposit back. So that's my commitment. If this thing is ready to move into or close to ready to move into, I'm going to get your deposit back. You treat me right, I want to treat you right. And then it goes into kind of what's included here. So we got our vacating checklist. Provides explanation of what's expected in terms of cleaning the home, what we expect on keys. All keys of the property need to be returned to us. And until you turn in the keys, garage door openers can be returned to us and left on the kitchen counter. So it just kind of gives some instructions there. The move-out inspection. The move-out inspection will be performed once the possession has been turned over to us. If you would like to be present during the inspection, please notify us and we will schedule an appointment. So in Kansas, I think theoretically you're supposed to do it in person with the resident. We didn't do that. We would do it before, or we would do it on our own, and then we would give the resident the opportunity to update and make any adjustments. And by doing that, that pretty much eliminated anybody who will say, well, they didn't do it with me. Well, we gave you the opportunity, and you put adjustments on there, and we didn't fight you on those adjustments. I mean, they were legitimate, and that pretty much takes the steam out of it. But the reason, like we talked about the move-in inspection, the reason I don't do it with them is because they're talking to my ear. They're giving me 1,000 reasons why that was there when they moved in, or how this isn't really their fault, or just it just takes up a lot more time. The end result's going to be the same, and it's more of an opportunity for confrontation that isn't going to help anybody. So by doing it after, now if they want to be there, I will respect that they can be there, but I also tell them at that point in time, you can be here, you can look at the stuff, but for now, let me do my job. We can talk afterwards. Let me alone. I'll go through here. If you see anything, feel free. Let's bring it up. Let's knock it down. But I want to get right down to business. I'm not going to sit here and debate these things with you. If you want to debate afterwards, we can debate, but I'm not going to debate them with you right now. And then I also note on there, the inspection and picture process takes about an hour to complete, which if they're talking your ear off, it takes longer than that. But as long as they're given the opportunity to, and I never gave anybody any grief that wanted to add something, I'd take a look at it and be like, yeah, you're right, I missed that. Okay, good. Or yeah, I can see what you're saying with that. As long as you're not giving anybody grief, there's never any reason for them to take it any further. But again, with pictures, the move-in inspection, their signature, and all that good stuff, it's never been an issue. So that's how I do it. It's like one of those deals that if it got challenged, could legally somebody say, well, you're supposed to do it this way? Yeah, maybe, but it never was, and it just was never an issue. Okay, so here inside of this, I actually include a cleaning checklist, and if they do all these things the right way, they're going to be good. I mean, if they just go down here and do these things and mark it off or whatever, you will not need to bring a professional cleaner in. This home will be clean in a way that will be ready for a move in. I mean, it's the same cleaning checklist that I give to the contractors. And that's one of the reasons I put it in there, is just gives them a guide exactly what we're looking for. What are the expectations? I also put in the settlement charges. This is an estimate right up here. All costs are estimate. Actual costs may vary. Because I don't know who I'm going to contract out to. And these prices are actually probably a little overinflated. Well, I don't know, replace countertop. I mean, again, that's probably these days it's older list. These days, that's a really, well, I guess for Mica, cheaper countertops. Back then, we didn't get a whole bunch into the granite and stuff like that. And usually it was just sections we had to repair. So, but it was just really, more than anything, it was just to put a bunch of dollar numbers in their face and make them be like, oh, I can take care of this a lot cheaper than what they're going to charge me. So let me take care of it before they get in there. And that was beneficial to us. We wanted that thing as close to ready as possible before we got possession. And some people followed this and it was great and it worked. Windows, plumbing, extermination, locks, electrical. Now, having said that, there's a copy of this. It's a Word doc. You can download it. You can update the prices. You can add stuff. You can remove stuff. You can make this yours. It's 100% editable. Editable? I don't know if that's, it's 100%, it's a 100% document that you can edit and make your own, and I encourage you to do that. And that's kind of a weird leave off there, but you get the gist. This is the letter that goes out, and really what I'm trying to do here is basically say, hey, once you leave this place in move-in ready condition, I'm gonna give your deposit back, and here's a list of things that you can do to make sure that happens. It's just that encouragement to make that, because again, it just makes my life a whole lot easier. And theirs too. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody wants to fight over charges, getting their deposit back and all that fun stuff. Just not, we all have better things to do. Okay, so utility transfers. So this may vary depending on where you're at, but the utility companies I've worked with in the past, they've let me set shut off or new turn on dates into the future. And I usually do it a day or two after the scheduled move out date. And the reason being is because if they see the turn on and the turn on, they're not going to shut that off. They're just going to transfer it, they're going to read the meter and they're just going to transfer it over. And then if I do it a day or after and that person's not out, then I know I have time to still go in and cancel my turn on for that utility and make sure it never actually gets into my name. But I don't want it to get shut off because I don't want the lag time to get it back turned back on I want to be able to get in there and get to work. I want to be able to send contractors in there. I just want to get moving on the unit. And most things you can't even really do unless utilities are on in terms of cleaning, maintenance, things along those lines. So it's just really being proactive, getting set up and getting prepared for that turnover process. But at the same time, I recognize that if somebody decides to be a holdover tenant, I also buy myself enough time to be able to shut these off without it going into my name. Because if they hold over and they don't get those utilities turned off and they get switched into mine and they're still living there, I can't just go in and turn the utilities off at that point in time. I can't switch it back into their name. And then if I turn them off, they could be considered a constructive eviction or retaliatory. Don't want to do that. That's why I want to buy enough time to where it never hits my actual name if they are going to stay there after the date they're supposed to move out. Okay. The move out inspection. So we did a move in inspection when we first got in. I did the move in inspection. If you remember, we went down the right side and we marked satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and we documented in the description anything that may have been damaged or stained or stuff that shouldn't be charged to the resident. And so what we're doing here is the same thing, but on the move out, and we're documenting the same thing, the condition of that particular line item. Let me pull this over, just get a better view of the actual checklist. And again, remember, this is a longer checklist. We won't go through everything, but real simple. Let's just find a interior component here. Living room. Okay, so doors. What are the condition of the doors? Satisfactory? Good. Nothing. Wall, satisfactory in the living room? Maybe not. Maybe it's unsatisfactory. Maybe there is a 12-inch by 12-inch hole in the wall that needs patched. What is going to be the ballpark cost on that? Where do you think we get that from? How about the vacating letter? There's also a separate resource in there, and it's just security deposit settlement charge estimates. So that's another use of that, is that if I need to ballpark an expense, I can pop it on here. Where is that going to help? That's going to help us. I mean, you can pull it off of here, or you can just pull it directly off that sheet, but that's going to help us when we dispose of the security deposit and start itemizing the charges, which is a necessity in almost all states if you want to hold on to the deposit. So we're just going to go down the list. Let's scroll down here. We're going to document, excuse me, we're going to make sure the appliances are still in, make sure they're still the same appliances and not swapped out. I have seen that in the past too. My nice new appliances swapped out with old used pieces of crap. That was fun to deal with. Where am I trying to get to here? I'm trying to get down here to the keys. Okay, any additional? So on the out, how many keys did they return? How many garage door openers? What's the date of inspection? Who did the inspection? And then any signatures. And then usually what'll happen is I'll sign off on this. Now, what'll on the photos, which we'll get to in a minute, the photos I usually take to back this up are really only going to be of the damaged items. I don't, on the coming in on the photos, I'm getting everything so I can establish baselines, and that's quite a bit larger. But on the way out, it's usually just the, I think we'll probably pop right back over there in a minute, but let's see. So yeah, here we go. I mean, we talked about completing this on site with the resident move out. Again, and not recommended. I don't like it. If you can avoid it, avoid it. I like to complete it after the move out, and then I provide a copy of it along with the photo template afterwards. And then I like to send that photo template right along so they can see that if I'm hitting them for something, that there's a photo. I don't want them to have any doubt in their mind that I have backup for what I'm charging them for, because it just eliminates the argument. It's an unnecessary argument. It's damage. It's obvious it's damage. It wasn't damaged originally. It's damaged now. You're going to pay for it. There is no argument. There is no justification for it. You could have fixed it before I got in there, but you didn't. And then, like I was saying, I only really photographed the items that we're charging them for. So if there's 5 items on here charged, you're not going to get that photo template before. Maybe there's 3-4 pages of photos on here because I'm capturing every room from every angle and getting a good, but on the damages, of course, this isn't a damage one, but on a damage, I mean, if there's a big stain here on the carpet that wasn't there before, I'm taking a picture of that stain. You know, if this nice countertop is broken off here at the corner, I'm taking a picture of that, you know, and that's what's going to support that charge there. If there's a big hole in this cabinet door, I'm taking a picture of that cabinet door, and then that's going to be the supporting evidence for whatever I'm charging here, and then what ultimately is going to end up on the security deposit settlement. Because I mean, imagine trying to be a resident who is disputing a charge, and you take them to court and you're saying, I dispute this, I want my money back, I shouldn't have been charged this for blah, 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 blah. You walk in, you have your move-in inspection, it was perfectly fine, they signed off on it, you even have a picture, it's perfectly fine. Then you have a move out, it's not fine. You have a picture that it's not fine, and you have a reasonable charge there for replacement. And again, these are estimates, so I mean, whatever the actual charge is, you can even update, but you present all that in that type of manner. One, you show you're extremely well organized, you'll get the benefit of the doubt, you get some credibility, and there's just no debating it. It was fine when you moved in, it's not when you moved out. This is what we're going to charge you. It's super simple. Most logical people wouldn't even battle it, but that's not always the case. Some people still battle it. And there's that photo template. We just talked about this. Now again, it's to support the move-in checklist. And again, you can use video too if you want. You can also use those inspection apps, which pretty much does the same thing. I mean, if you use an inspection app, you're basically documenting on the app what you were the move-in, move-out inspection, and then you're backing it up with a photo right there. So it's like, you know, here's the condition, here's the photo, and it's tied in a nice little PDF report. Again, probably not going to use it unless you have multiple properties you're managing for and you do a lot of inspections. But they are cool, they are nice. Let's talk about the security deposit settlement. So we have the move-in done. We have our charges. We have 30 days of return of deposit. We'll say it's Kansas. But I want to get this out as soon as possible for a couple different reasons. One, I want to make sure to hit that timeline. Two, I want to capture the money that I can capture from the security deposit account, because whatever you charge them for, you will cut a check out back to them for the difference, and then you will transfer the rest into your account because it's for damages. So I'm going to use the move out inspection. I'm going to use that settlement charges guide, which was basically what was listed on the, let me see if I have that separated right now. I don't, but I could pull up the vacating resident. Let me just do it. I mean, the settlement charges guide in the resource section is literally just this outside of the letter. So that's what we're using, because of estimated costs. And if the costs come in more expensive, you can adjust them up. That's not a big deal. But for now, this allows you to adjust them. They're usually a little inflated. It's more than enough to cover the actual cost. And then if you ever have to kind of go the other direction, it gives you can do that as well. But what we're going to do here, I'm just going to use this form instead of my notes here. Okay, so how we're going to do this, we're going to put the name of the tenant in, the date that we're preparing this. That's important because, again, we only have so many days and we want to establish a timeline. The address of the property, lease expiration date, notice given, yes or no, move out date, keys returned, yes or no, forwarding address remarks. You can get all that stuff off the notice to vacate for the most part. How much were we holding in security deposit? How much were we holding in pet deposit, and how much are we holding in total deposit? Now remember, on pet deposits, the only thing that we can hold are pet related damages. For my property, I will just assume that we never allowed pets, so we're not holding a pet deposit. We'll just kind of do a scenario here. So let's just say we have $1,000 security deposit. They don't owe any rent, but if they did, I would put the months here. I would put, let's just say they didn't pay the last month's rent. So I would say April 2023, and I would just put the rent amount in here, full month's rent, $1,000. Late fees, if there's anything on the tenant ledger, I would put it on here. If they didn't return the keys, I would charge them for the keys. Where do we get the key charge from? I don't know, let's see. Replace a key, $5 a key, replace the door lock. If they didn't replace the key, I'm actually just gonna switch the deadbolt and I'm gonna charge them the whole thing. because I'm going to switch the deadbolt anyway. If they don't replace the key, then what they've basically done is they've eliminated my ability to use that deadbolt unless I rekey or something like that. But for these purposes, they didn't return the keys. I have to replace the deadbolt. Technically, I have to drill out the lock and replace a deadbolt. So I'm going to charge them for the whole lock. If there's any trash out damages, I'm going to put, the labor here, any paint, labor materials. I'm going to list them out for clean, carpet clean. And then if there are individual damage items, which I would get off of the move in, move out inspection. Let's just say damage to bedroom door, ceiling fan busted, hole in the screen, whatever else. I would literally damage to bedroom door, ceiling fan needs replaced, burn mark in bedroom carpet must replace, toilet broken into 1,000 pieces must replace. And I put the cost of labor and materials over in here. And what that's ultimately going to do is give you a total of your labor and a total of your materials. So you list out, itemized all your materials or all your items here. You put how much it's going to cost labor, how much in materials that's going to cost, and you total them up. So now we have our total deposit. So $1,000 minus our labor, minus our materials, and let's just say it's 500 even, just to keep it even keel. So $1,000 minus $500 in total labor materials, which means I owe $500 to the tenant and $500 is going to the property. And it's as simple as that. This isn't a complicated process. We just have to itemize. We have to make sure the costs are there. We have to reflect how much deposit we are holding. And then we have to reflect what we did with the deposit. $500 is going to be returned to the tenant. So we will send this we will send this to the tenant, to their forwarding address with a check for $500. And then they will see how much the property claimed and they'll see exactly why. And then, you could, if you wanted to, you can send a move out inspection if they haven't already got it with the pictures to justify that. And then that would be your package. That would be how you send that security deposit settlement out. And if you send the pictures and the move in, move out inspection on there, it's going to be really tough to dispute. Now, if you're not clear and you're just like damage to bedroom, $75. And here's a picture or two, but it's nothing as specific. Maybe they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Explain damage to bedroom. There's nothing wrong with this. I don't see anything in the pictures, or, whatever that case may be. That's why you want to get specific, and that's why you want to take pictures of the actual damages, so it just completely eliminates the argument before it even begins. And if they call you in and say, anything like, well, the corner of that kitchen countertop, that was like that the entire time. Okay, you're just wasting my time now. We all know that's not the case. Anything else, it's as simple as that. Take me to court for that then. If you must. At this point, you're just wasting my time. If it's legitimate, deal with it. Figure it out. Don't be argumentative, just be argumentative. If it's legitimate, work it out, figure it out. Do right by the tenant. But this is, again, pretty cut and dry, pretty simple. Okay, so again, know your laws. Each state has guidelines. We talked about this on how long you have to return those deposits along with the itemized charges. If you don't do this right, or if you don't get this returned in that period of time, they can actually sue you. In a lot of states, it's not just for the deposit itself, but they can sue you for damages, and those vary. I think in Kansas, it was 1.5 times the amount of security deposit. So if you have, let's say you have $1,000 security deposit, and let's just say you just don't get this to them. You don't itemize anything. You don't even bother. Let's just get extreme. You don't even bother. That tenant takes you to court. They can sue you for 1.5 times the amount of deposit. So you have to return a deposit of $1,000, but then they may win another $1,500, 1.5 times the amount of deposit, which means you're paying them out $2,500 for $1,000 deposit that you should have returned just because you didn't do this, you didn't itemize, you didn't get this, or you didn't get this to them the right amount of time. If this says 30 and you gave it to them 60 days down the road, or in Arizona, if it's 14 and you gave it to them 30 or 45 days later, even if it's all 100% legitimate, technically, it doesn't matter. You're outside of that 14 days, and if a judge wanted to, they can hit you with whatever the punishment for that is. Let's see here. Yeah, and again, there's in that miscellaneous, I think it's a miscellaneous section of the forms vault, is a listing of the by state security deposit return guidelines. Now, again, that is for reference. Double check, triple check, make sure that's accurate. Last thing I want you to do is take that as a gospel. It should be really accurate information, but double, triple check, make sure you know your laws, okay? I'm not an attorney. I live in Arizona. I know Kansas very well. I know Arizona. I don't know Washington. I don't know, Colorado. I mean, there's a lot of places I haven't managed. So I'm getting this information from other places too. This is all here for your convenience, for your reference, but check it out and just make sure, double check, triple check that it's accurate, okay? Now, if you go in there and you've heard that if you've always heard it's been 30 and you've seen it's been 30, you've been operating by 30 and you look at it and it's 30, you're probably safe. But if all of a sudden you thought all this stuff's going on and now this thing's saying it's 14, okay, that's a red flag. Double check and make sure it is actually 30 and not 14. And then if it's wrong, let me know. I'd appreciate that. Okay. Security deposits disputes. So if somebody says, I disagree with what you're saying, I don't think I need to be charged for this because of A, B, and C. Okay, cool. Here's what you need to do. You need to send in writing your dispute. It can be email, I don't care, but whatever it has to be, it's in writing, and I need to know point for point, what are you disputing? Why are you disputing? And what do you think it should be? What's your justification for that? And then wait for it. Require it in writing, no, nothing verbal. Reason being, establishes a timeline. If they wait, let's say your return requirement's 30 days and you give it to them, and let's say they wait 6 months and they send it. Sorry, not much you can do about that. I mean, this happened 6 months ago, and I think that you're kind of out of your ability to dispute that. But if they then say, well, I disputed this, and you took 6 months to respond to me, and so therefore I think you should return my entire deposit. What this starts to do is it helps establish that timeline, because anything responses you do are going to be in writing as well. So they send their email, their letter, whatever, it's dated. And if it's, if you get it in the mail, then save the envelope with the date stamp or whatever. But then when you respond, you're going to have a dated letter as well. And again, you're starting to form that documentation, because when you're talking about security deposit disputes, you are starting to talk about the potential beginning of a legal issue. So you want to make sure to have your ducks in a row on this. But evaluate it, check it out, consider it. There's been many a times I've looked at something, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I agree with that. I understand what they're saying. I don't know what I was thinking, or now that I'm thinking about it in those terms, I agree with that. I'm gonna reevaluate this, or I'm gonna adjust the deposit settlement. And if you need to make an adjustment, make the adjustment. Just create a new form and change it, and then write on there, this is an adjustment to, on the notes, this is an adjustment to, from a dispute letter or whatever else. Basically just make it known that this is your secondary one. This isn't your first one. You sent a first one, they disputed it, you agree with it, you're making a change, and you're giving them more money back, is I guess what I'm saying. You don't want it to be mistaken for your first submission. You want it to be the reconciliation adjustment. And again, make sure in writing, you want all this as a clear paper trail. Again, you can read that pretty good already, but this is it. It's a real simple letter, and this is your response back, just letting them know what you did. I was able to determine such and such, therefore the charge of this will be removed or will remain. All of the charges listed in your statement will remain unchanged. Please remit your payment within 10 days to such and such. Again, it's just a very standard boilerplate letter. There's nothing legal about this at all. I don't think there's any legal requirements on it at all. You can adjust and do what you need to on that. Let's see what we're doing on time. 45 minutes. I think we're in pretty good shape here. Okay. Actually, we're in really good shape. We're right about that 45-minute mark, and we are moving into the turnover management, which will be the last kind of official section of the Landlord Launch landlord training program. Outside of any, see, with the bookkeeping, what I plan to do is as we move forward, I will add things like kind of how to do bookkeeping and overviews of the different softwares so much. So it's not necessarily a part of the actual course, but I'm going to include it as the course will continue to grow with these additions as I kind of jump in these different like platforms. And the platforms I plan on evaluating and working through and showing people how to use are really going to be kind of geared towards bookkeeping for single landlord owners like ourselves, as opposed to property management companies. So that's why I say it's kind of the last section, the core course, but there's other things that are involved that will come, and this course will continue to grow too, especially a lot of these things may already be in place depending on when you're watching this. So for today, we are going to wrap it up here. We are going to tackle turnover management when we return in our next session. Once again, if you can, come visit us at our weekly Q&A. That's live, and if you don't have any questions, that's fine. Join us anyway. Like I always say, you never know what you're going to learn based off what other people are asking. Resource section, well, we'll go over everything including resource section after the next session, but all the forms that we have reviewed today will be in there. Obviously, the laws, links to that security deposit return stuff. So everything that we recovered here, there'll be quick links here, and of course you can find all that stuff in the forums vault as well. So that's it. That's what I have today. Thank you very much for being with us. We will see you next session when we tackle turnover management and start to wrap this course up. So thank you once again, and we'll see you there.